compared to the weather forecast for this weekend, leading up to the weekend, we've been doing pretty well. Because it was rain and rain and rain. That was the forecast. Now it's a little drizzly, a little rain, a little early, but very different. Fortunate. So the topic this evening is, at least the title of it comes from a term that Srila Prabhupada regularly used. I'm sure there's some kind of a cultural feature to it that I'm not aware of. Those of you from India, you're familiar with this term, reversal? Is it a common terminology in India? No, it's Prabhupada saying. So reversals, he calls. When I first heard him use the term, I thought of a car accident. Like, you're going along the highway and everything is normal. And the next thing you know, you're going the opposite direction because there was a head-on collision and you're now in reverse. You weren't intending to go in reverse and it suddenly happened. Something surprising, unexpected, and a little extreme. Reversal. He seemed to use the term something that you don't expect, something you don't want, something that's close to 180 degrees the opposite of the way that you had planned things to be, and all of a sudden it's out of your control. So there's several scriptural and a couple of non-scriptural references I'd like to make. I'll do a scriptural one first. I'll do a couple of other ones after that. Perhaps the foremost for us is, I'll save for last, it's Lord Brahma speaking about the reversal that's going to be happening to him, or the reaction that's going to be coming to him for having stolen Krishna's calves and cowherd boys. He had a kidnap penalty coming his way. What to speak of, he just interfered with Krishna's pastimes. He just intruded in the middle of Krishna's pastimes and disrupted them. His own devotee. So we'll say that perhaps the best one for last. We'll start with King Prithu. As some of you are a little newer here, so we'll identify King Prithu. He's one of the avatar forms of the Lord. Avatar meaning from the spiritual world, descending into this world and doing something on behalf of the Lord, or on behalf of the will of the Supreme. And many cases, most of the cases, it's the same. It's the Vishnu Tattva forms. It's of the spiritual world manifesting here. But there's a category amongst the 6 different types of avatars, there's a living entity that's empowered with the fullness of the potency of Lord Vishnu in some particular aspect. Like, for example, one of them is Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe. He's endowed, a living entity like us, but endowed with the fullness of the Lord's creative potency, Shrishti Shakti. Brahma is also a guna avatar. He's another category. He's 2 categories. Or Narada Muni. Many of you know, even new people know Narada Muni. Narada Muni is a great devotee. He's a living entity, like us, but he's empowered with the Lord's Bhakti Shakti. The fullness of the Lord's Bhakti Shakti is within Narada. Very special. He's a Shakti Vesha avatar. Prithu, the personality we'll be reading about, just one verse in purport. Prithu bears the fullness of the Lord's ruling potency. The Lord Vishnu has unlimited potencies, and each of them are unlimited, and Prithu manifests the fullness of the Lord's ruling potency, Palana Shakti, etc. For Kumaras manifest the Lord's Gyan Shakti, and so forth and so on. So it's a category of avatar. Prithu is one of them. And his appearance is pretty interesting. He appears from the churning of the legs of his elder brother, the churning of, the chest and legs, arms of his elder brother. He becomes manifest that way. And he becomes the king, and he's accepted by all the citizens as a perfected leader, and they adore him, and he rules very righteously. And one of the things he wants to do for his citizens is he wants to perform 100 sacrifices meant to bring prosperity to the citizens. That was his intention. So he's using something that's Vedic to give strength and merit and prosperity to his citizens. So one of those, the 100th of the, after performing 999 Ashva Medha Yagya, Ashva means horse sacrifice. Indra comes and steals the horse. And there's a whole story about why Indra does things like that. But it's one of the prerequisites for becoming Indra. If you're down here, if you want to become Indra, you do 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. So he was like, maybe he wants to take my post and bump me out and take over. So he was noivus. He went and stole the horse, and the ruling potency of Prithu was, he was going to punish Indra because it was wrong. And it got to be a heated situation. So Lord Brahma, another Shaktivesh avatar, and one of the leading personality in the whole universe, came to pacify Prithu, saying, basically, you're the personality of Godhead, you don't need to do Ashwamedha Yajnas. What are you doing? And besides, it's disturbing the King of Heaven, Indra. So why do something that's going to disturb the King of Heaven? And even what you're doing is a righteous thing and a proper thing and a Vedic thing. It appears that it's just not intended to take place, so just accept it. That's the reversal. So here's the language. If you look it up later if you want. Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 34. My dear King, do not be agitated and anxious because your sacrifices have not been properly executed due to providential impediments. Providential, not just an insurance company. It means the will of the Supreme. Providential impediments. Kindly take my words with great respect. We should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. I'll read the purport. How do you know what's a providential arrangement and what's something that calls for your action? You need to do something. How do you distinguish? Purport. Sometimes the saintly or very religious person also has to meet with reversals in life. Such incidents should be taken as providential. Doesn't give the criteria where you draw the line. Such incidents should be taken as providential. Although there may be sufficient cause for being unhappy, one should avoid counteracting such reversals, for the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. Lord Krishna has also advised us in this connection, we should tolerate things instead of becoming agitated. The message is not a message of pacifism and just be bland. Also, I'm going to tell one non-devotional example. Something that I've been requested from time to time, especially in corporate places and at MIT, I've been asked to speak about stress management. I think there's some correlation between MIT and corporate life. In fact, that's the one they want me to speak about every time I go there, is stress management. So, what I say in the beginning is, I agreed to speak about stress management as long as I could speak about stress management from a spiritual perspective. And from the spiritual perspective, the best stress management is to not have any. Meaning Vaikuntha consciousness, because in Vaikuntha, that's the spiritual world, Kuntha means anxiety, and Vaikuntha means no anxiety. So it's best to be a resident of Vaikuntha. That's the best stress management principle to go for. But just in case you're not in Vaikuntha consciousness, then you have to manage the stressful and anxiety-producing situations. Here the advocacy is not get into it and manage the situation. It's to tolerate the situation. So now I'm going to tell you something that I say in this stress management presentation. And I take the time to get into what they need to do to manage, because it's taken, and I say it's taken directly from standard presentations on this topic by people that make their profession, stress management. So, it's two things, actually. One is the Chinese farmer story. You can go online and find it. It's readily available. And my comment on this ahead of time is, it appears that this Chinese farmer is a Taoist. And Taoism, I don't know so much about it, but I learned about it in college when it was one of the spiritual marketplace items I was looking at when I was trying to figure out what direction I wanted to go in my life. And Taoism is basically, you go with the flow. The contrast that's made by Taoists is, when you're a Taoist, you come to a river, you just wade across the river. And if you're a yogi, you walk across the river. Get the idea. It's just to accept things and go with the flow. So, once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer. And the Chinese farmer had a horse. And the other farmers came to the Chinese farmer that had the horse and said, "Oh, what good fortune, you have a horse. Because you have the horse, then you can plow your fields much more easily than all the rest of us. How fortunate." And the Chinese farmer said the same thing he says each time he gets something that happens to him. He says, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" Some time passed, the horse ran away. And the other farmers came to the Chinese farmer and said, "Oh, how unfortunate your horse ran away. Now you have to plow your fields like the rest of us. And the Chinese farmer said, good fortune, ill fortune, who can say? Some time passed, the horse came back. And not only the horse came back, but several other wild horses came back with the horse. And the villagers came to the farmer and said, oh, how fortunate, the horses came back, the horse and many other horses, and now you can eat even more easily, plow your fields, compared to the rest of us. And the Chinese farmer said, good fortune, ill fortune, who can say? After some time, the son of the farmer was trying to train the horses while riding the horse, to train the horse to plow the field. He fell off the horse and broke his leg. And the villagers came to the farmer and said, oh, how unfortunate, your son fell off the horse and broke his leg. And the Chinese farmer said, good fortune, ill fortune, who can say? And then the Chinese government went to war with somebody. And there was a conscription act. All able-bodied young men have to join the army. So the government people came to the town and took all the young men except this young man who had a broken leg, because he wasn't able to go to war. So the villagers came to the farmer and said, oh, what good fortune, your son had a broken leg, you didn't have to go to war. And the farmer said his favorite line, good fortune, ill fortune, who can say? And that's the end of the story. I'm sure there's more chapters to it. Which says, how you deal with circumstances that come your way that are unexpected, unpleasant, unfavorable, or favorable. Don't be so reactive and think, good fortune, ill fortune, and feel happy and sad, because that's the world of duality. Rather, if you're Taoist, you just shrug your shoulders and go with the flow. No, we're not advocating be a Taoist and go with the flow, but don't be reactive to the external. In this case, the advice given by Brahma to Prithu is you accept that which is happening as an arrangement. You may not understand the purpose behind the arrangement, but you accept the arrangement. Here's one more. These are just illustrations on how to accept reversals and say yes to Krishna. So, one other reference that's a non-scriptural reference made, because the audience in these cases are worldly ones. One of the places that I made this presentation was at Fannie Mae, you remember? One of our devotees here works at Fannie Mae, and the room was filled. I understood right away. That's a stressful job. And so one of the presentations there was a book written by Viktor Frankl. Maybe some of you who are well-read know who Viktor Frankl is. But he was a Jewish concentration camp survivor. And the book that he wrote was in late 1940s, 1946 or something like that. And has been since republished some, like, I don't know, large number of times, 25 times. It's a very popular book. One, because it's real skinny, and another is because it's really powerful. And I found out about it from a devotee that does counseling professionally. A devotee that does professional counseling regularly recommends that people that have some emotional situation that they're dealing with read the book, because there's messages in the book that are very useful for managing stress. Now, his situation was maximum stress. He was in the book he writes, I'm making it simple, but they were kept. He was by profession, he was a psychiatrist, and his intention, remember this word intention we spoke about, was he was accepting that there was a God-given purpose in his life that he was saying yes to, and this was an opportunity being presented to him to understand how, when he's on the other side of the problem, he'll be able to assist people in his professional life how to manage stress in their life. And it worked. So, he describes, for example, they were kept in, this is as far as I can recall, little corrugated metal cells that had chains on the outside, and every day around a certain time, the guard would come and jiggle his keys and jiggle the lock and the chain on the lock and make it rattling sounds, so they would panic every day at a regulated time. And some persons were then, the lock was opened and they were taken off to the gas chamber. And common as people would scream as they were being dragged off to the gas chamber and then gassed, put to death. So one day it was his turn. The door, the chain opened, the lock opened, the chain was removed, and he was taken to the gas chamber. And he didn't panic. He somehow stayed secure in his contemplation on the calling, the purpose that God had given him for being in this circumstance. And what happened was, there was a noise off in the distance. The guard had to go and attend to whatever that problem was. And by the time he was done with the problem, and came back, was, the schedule was over for gassing people, so he just put him back into the little box. And he survived. But he describes what the general and even the specific experience of that terrible situation. So he writes, there are circumstances in life, which is true, that's just beyond your capacity to change. Like, if it's going to rain, or whatever it is. There's some circumstances of life, there's really nothing you can do. You can make some adjustment, there's really nothing you can do about the circumstance. So his point is, in such cases in life, there's one thing that cannot be taken from a man. Even the circumstances can't take it away, and that's your determination, how you choose to respond to the circumstance. That's a freedom that can't be taken from anyone. Another place. What man needs is not, by all possible ways, remove, just as it described here, deal with the reversal, somehow get rid of that situation, address the distressful situation and reduce it, or remove it, or do something about it. It's not that man needs to do that at all costs. Rather, the man needs to have a sense of purpose in life, to be fulfilled. So you go to the position of strength, the purpose to be fulfilled, strength, that's what he did. He accessed that purpose in his life and work with that. So back to the discussions that we've been having, at least I've been having, is this Anukul Yasha message. That is the purpose of pleasing Krishna, the bhakti principle of my life is meant, my identity is a tiny spark, tiny soul, living entity, meant for service to Krishna. That's who I am. And I wish my purpose of life is to be in that relationship with Krishna. Whatever else may happen, may go this way, that way. That's one thing that I know is my mission in life. So for us, it may be some other particular application of that principle. I wish to serve Krishna in such and such way. Raise a Krishna conscious family, or establish a varnashram community, or distribute a lot of books, or something that I wish to But not just the activity, but pleasing Krishna. In my relationship with Krishna, in this feature, and I'm very dedicated to this feature of my relationship with Krishna, whatever that may be. It may be kirtan, maybe deity worship, it may be whatever it is, or combinations of some things, but the essence, the say yes to Krishna message is, that's the place of shelter. So now, supposing, just close your eyes and imagine you're an elevated devotee. Let's say you're Maharaj Yudhisthira. You're one of Krishna's eternal associates. Just imagine. And then here comes reversal. Now, how do you handle that? In Maharaj Yudhisthira's case, the reversal was, he felt really badly that because of me, so that I can be the ruler, millions of people are killed. And women are without their husbands, children are without their fathers, parents are without their sons, because of me. It wasn't because of him, but that's how he was, in humility, that's what he was feeling. So after the Kurukshetra battle, he couldn't be consoled. Krishna went to try to console Yudhisthira. Krishna couldn't console Yudhisthira. It was part of Krishna's plan to not be able to console Yudhisthira, so that Krishna's devotee could excel Krishna and console Yudhisthira. And Krishna's devotee that he wanted to elevate and have everyone honor and appreciate was Grandfather Bhishma. He was placing Grandfather Bhishma above himself because he likes to do that with his devotees. So this very beautiful scene, it's in Mahabharata, but it's also in the Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9. The Pandavas, they're now ruling it purposefully because they know that Grandfather Bhishma wanted them to rule. They came to him when he's lying in the bed of arrows, in their royal attire with their crown and all the opulence of regality, to greet Grandfather Bhishma, who's lying on a bed of arrows. It's interesting sounding, not just a yogi, where he's lying on, spikes or thorns. His body is pierced with arrows. Long story. And he's just lying there because he's a yogi, and he's been given this benediction by his father that he doesn't have to give up his body until he wants to give up his body. Who has that privilege? Grandfather Bhishma did. So when the Pandavas came to greet him, they felt so sorry to see when their father was dead and gone, this person lying there on the battlefield was their father. Grandfather, in the absence of their father, played the role of their father. He gave them everything, guidance and care and affection and everything that grandfathers do to grandchildren in the role of the father. And to see him in that condition, it was so difficult. And imagine Yudhisthira thinking, on top of all the millions of people, here's Grandfather Bhishma. So what did Grandfather Bhishma do? He expressed his concern of how much suffering they had to undergo. He's not thinking about his suffering. Usually we're at the center, right? But he's thinking of them because he's Grandfather Bhishma, saying how much difficulty, the tribulations that you had to undergo, an ordinary person would not be able to survive. So severe were the tribulations you had to undergo in this thing and that thing and the other thing, and you list them. But you were always protected. You are protected by three principles. So this is something that we can do when we're in a situation of a reversal. And you ask yourself the following three questions. He gives three principles to look at. That you're following the codes of Dharma, proper conduct, theistic conduct. 2, you're doing so under the guidance of qualified Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. And 3, when doing those things under proper guidance, in your heart is the intention of pleasing the Supreme Lord. Anukulyasya, or Anukulyena Krishna Anushilana. Your focus is my dedication, my sankalpa, is to be in my relationship with Krishna, pleasing him. Bhakti. And if you can check the box in each of those three and it's a yes, then there's no cause to lament. And if there isn't, then you correct those things, not the circumstance. You correct inside, not the outside. Because the outside is happening because of the inside. In the case of a great personality like Maharaj Yudhisthira, it's not karma, it's somehow providential arrangement for Yudhisthira to be in that situation, to be an instrument of Krishna's will, which is exactly what it was. He was the instrument of Krishna's will. And it's not the same for us, whatever is Krishna's will for tiny little us. For Yudhisthira, he wanted, before leaving the world, to put in charge of the world a qualified Vaishnava. Who is qualified like Yudhisthira Maharaj? Nobody. He's the replacement. He's the ruler of the world. Krishna descended to correct the imbalance of values and remove the demoniac kings and uphold the devotees and give Dharma. So he did. Yudhisthira was the emblem of Dharma. It's what Krishna wanted. Yudhisthira was the instrument of that. No cause for lamentation. We'll come back. Well, I mentioned it again, but we'll come back to Prabhupada's short purport. But if you instead go to the circumstance and try to adjust the circumstance, make the circumstance less suffering, less tribulation, less disturbing, if that's where your focus goes, you may do some things. And if that's where your focus goes, one should avoid counteracting such reversals, for the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of material anxiety. The mind. And the wish to be the controller of the circumstances of life which are beyond the control. They're in Krishna's control, the circumstances. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes brilliantly and eloquently on this topic. I'd like to read because it's hard to properly represent his words. The world is temporary. No one has come to live here eternally. Wherever the Lord keeps one at any point in time, one should cheerfully stay there and accept the reward or punishment from the Lord. All rewards or punishment that come from the Lord are ordained for one's ultimate benefit. Because reversal is a short-term loss. But ultimate benefit is where our attention should go. We may not know what that ultimate benefit is. That's what Grandfather Bhishma said. Don't try to figure out the Lord's plan. Great sages and perfected souls, they've tried and they can't, so don't even try. Or as Yudhishthira. Just accept there is a plan. And you'll find out what it is in the course of time. You may not know. Just accept. We adore the rewards that come from the Lord's illusory energy, and His punishment gives us pain. In many ways. Knowing that this punishment from the illusory energy is ordained for the purpose of gaining the mercy of the Lord, the devotees do not reject it. Remember from the first day, it's not like you have to like the unpleasant. You don't have to like it's going to be raining and you have to organize activities for all the children. What do you do when it's raining and all these children around? Or whatever is the thing that your life is made up of. You don't have to like the thing, but don't reject the thing, because then you're just in anxiety about life and the circumstances of your life. Accept it cheerfully. And with tolerance, realizing it to be the mercy of the Lord. Those who do not understand that the troubles of the material world are actually the mercy of the Lord search again and again for material happiness and material progress, and ultimately meet with failure. But this is a letter from Bhaktisiddhanta to a disciple. Prabhupada, following Bhaktisiddhanta, used letters to give wonderful instructions, as he did with his Bhaktivedanta purports and other methods. But very nice instruction. We don't know the circumstance that he was addressing. And he may speak differently or write differently to another person in another circumstance, but it's a nice principle to understand. He writes in a similar fashion in Brahma Samhita, a phrase that I like, kind of sticks out of the whole Brahma Samhita. He speaks of fire ordeal. Out of his great mercy to his devotees, Krishna purges out by the fire of ordeal the root of all karma, namely nescience and evil desires. So what brings about our suffering over and over again? Ignorance. Ignorance is the root of suffering. So ordeal, you don't like it. That's the nature, it's why you call it an ordeal. You don't like it. Fire ordeal, you don't like it really big time. And we don't say no to the fire of ordeal, we say no to the ignorance that's at the root of why that ordeal is coming. Ignoring Krishna and evil desires, whatever that might be. Because from ignorance comes ignorant desire, comes ignorant activity, comes bondage and suffering. So the root of it is ignorance. So when ordeal comes your way, of course it's easy to talk about, but another thing to do, and it's important to understand this principle because it's going to come. If it's not happening right now or yesterday, it's going to happen tomorrow. It's for sure and certain. It's the nature of the place where we are. So how to address yourself when it comes? You say yes to Krishna, and you don't have to like the ordeal, but you understand the purpose behind the ordeal. It's for our ultimate benefit. How it's for our ultimate benefit, who can say? A couple more, and I think we'll wrap it up, because the principles are in place already. An application of this principle comes in the life of Thakur Haridas, again for people that are new. Lord Chaitanya came to give the primary means of achieving spiritual perfection for this age of Kali, the chanting of the holy name, Yuga Dharma, chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And the principal person who Lord Chaitanya accepted as the Acharya, the primary teacher of the chanting of the holy name, was Thakur Haridas. Thakur Haridas wasn't born in an elevated family. He wasn't born in a Vaishnava family. He wasn't born in a Brahmin family. He was in a remote place, born in a Muslim family. But from his childhood, although he wasn't given the name Krishna by his family members, he somehow had this affinity for chanting Krishna's name. So from the time he was a little boy, constantly chanting Krishna's name. Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And in the course of time, as he grew and matured, he became considered by everybody, not just because of the chanting, but his quality and character. He was considered a saint. And so, because he was considered a saint, he had to endure lots of tribulation from people that were envious of his saintliness. And strongest amongst those that seemed, at least the stories that we hear about his life, were Muslim rulers who didn't like the idea that one amongst us is chanting the Hindu name of God, and he's revered by our own people as a saint. They're like, that was too much. So one of those places was in Pulia. There were several places, but one of them was Pulia is a place that you can go visit today. In fact, I've visited multiple times. It's near our temple in Mayapur, and it's not so far also from the place where Advaita Acharya at Shantipur resided. So Advaita Acharya, those of you that are not been around a while, he's one of our principal associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivas, that's 5. Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar, and Srivas. So Gadadhar over here in our Panchatattva, he was elder to Lord Chaitanya. He was of the age of Lord Chaitanya's father, and even a little older, and perfected soul, keeping it simple. And so is Haridas Thakur. When the two of them met, whoa, they had immediate appreciation for one another. And Advaita Acharya honored Haridas Thakur as the best amongst men. And Advaita, then Haridas was saying, people of your community, they're going to say bad things about you. Because I'm born in a Muslim family, and you're treating me like a saint. They're going to criticize you. And he said, anyone that chants the holy name as you do, he's the best of men. So they had that very close, affectionate relationship. So Haridas made his residence not so far from Advaita Acharya's residence in Shantipur, on the bank of a river, bank of the Ganges. And his house was a little humble. It was a hole in the wall. On the bank of the river Ganges was a cave. So he lived in the cave. That was his home, where he would chant Hare Krishna. And when he would go about in the public, people would rave and praise and honor Haridas. So the local government leader was agitated out of his mind. So he had him arrested and wanted to punish him for his wrongdoings. the wrongdoings was he was chanting Hare Krishna and being honored as a saint. So they had him arrested and put him in prison while he was waiting his hearing before the court, which was the government leader. They didn't have divisions of, the ruler was the magistrate. So he's in the prison, and when he came to the prison, the other persons in the prison, immediately they recognized, here's a saint who's come to be with us in the prison, and they're being saying, Haribol. Good fortune has come our way. A saintly person has come. Please bless us. So Haridas blessed them, saying, may you stay always like this. And they didn't say what kind of benediction, but the expression in their face was, that was what was in their mind. Why are you speaking like this? What kind of benediction is this? And Haridas then explained, no, you don't understand. I'm going to make it simple because of time. You don't understand. I didn't mean stay in prison. I'll tell you that in a few days, all of you are going to be released from prison. Your circumstance of life is temporary. So my recommendation is not that your circumstance of life should remain permanent, but your consciousness should stay the same, because now you're restricted from sense gratification. You don't have a chance. You're in prison. And you're in hardship. And so from the core of your heart, you're calling out to the Supreme Lord to give you shelter and protection. And what's going to happen when you get released? It's going to go out the window. Business as usual, Haribol. So that should not happen. May you stay in this position of feeling yourselves eager for the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So whether it's good fortune or ill fortune, your heart should go to being a recipient of the mercy of the Lord. And circumstances of life change. Exactly what Bhaktisiddhanta said. No one can be here permanently. And while you're here temporarily, sometimes and sometimes it's a place of duality. It's a very basic teaching of Bhagavad Gita. One of the first instructions that Krishna gives. There is this perception, because we're in the place of duality, that sometimes there's happiness and sometimes there's distress. Sometimes there's honor and sometimes there's dishonor. There's a place of duality. It's going to go on. Let your consciousness not move from the position of being eager for the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Don't forget it when it's good fortune, and don't simply wish for the removal of the difficulty when there's ill fortune. Just this one thing. What's that? The mercy of the Supreme Lord, your relationship of the Supreme Lord, being in your relationship with the Supreme Lord. Why? Because that's the one thing that brings us to the material world, if you remember from the first evening. How did we get into the temple room? Most of us came through that door. That's the exit door. We left our shoes down there. And that's where we go when we want to leave. So when you want to leave the material world, how do you leave the material world? Be absorbed in your relationship with Krishna as your be-all and end-all. And other things are important. It's just part of your service to Krishna. Those aren't zeros. But it's not to 10 either. It's following behind the one thing, the secondary things, and tertiary things, and other, expanding out. The circles of your life, they expand out. But what goes in the center? What's really important to you? Deep, deep, deep inside. What's really important? We discussed this. We want to love, and we want to be loved. All species of life, they have different forms, but they want a relationship that's, and especially in the human form. stories and songs and lives and da-da-da-da-da. It's just misplaced. Properly repose that tendency to love and be loved. And then the love of others then becomes full, rather than I'm at the center, the other kind of thing is not really what love is, although it may pass under the name of love. Where the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is at the center. And then makes other relationships full, and our life full, and the purpose of life fulfilled. And when reversals come, we don't get lost in the world of duality. So now the last one, and we'll leave time for discussion. Canto, you can look it up later, I invite you to. It's referred to in Bhagavad Gita, in purports. Bhagavatam 10:14-8, very important instruction, very famous verse for Hare Krishna devotees. Persons that have material bodies that wish to go to Krishna and something happens that seems to make it difficult. You know that one, right? So the circumstance, this is chapter 14, chapter 13, I don't go too much into the story. The story is very nice. In chapter 13, Krishna has pastimes with the cowherd boys in the forest of Vrindavan. And one day, in the forest of Vrindavan, herding the calves, they're near the side of Govardhan Hill, and the cowherd boys see this giant cave in the middle of the path that they walk every day around Govardhan Hill. They never saw this cave here before. What's this cave? And so they get closer. They smell this bad, fishy smell coming from the cave. And then they realize, wait a minute, this isn't a cave. This is a giant serpent with his jaws up into the sky, bottom on the ground. But Krishna is always protected. Let's go check it out. Let's go search inside the mouth of the cave, of the serpent. Agasara. So they go, off they go into the mouth of the cave, the mouth of the serpent. And Krishna sees them going into the mouth of the serpent, and he, for a moment, forgets himself, because he's in anxiety. Krishna gets an anxiety, transcendental, and he manages it by his own potency. His anxiety is, he knows how attached the cowherd boys are to him. When they're walking through the forest, and there's a tree, and one cowherd boy is on this side and Krishna's on that side, for the duration of time that they pass on the other side of the tree, they can't see each other. The cowherd boy is in great anxiety. Yugayitam Meshena Chakrusha Pravasayatam. It seems like 12 years or more have passed and in feelings of separation from Krishna, when they can't see Krishna because the tree's in the way. He knows the hearts of his devotees. He knows that they'll be in big anxiety if they can't see Krishna. So he gets an anxiety. And then he gains his composure, because it's his own internal potency. And he decides what to do. So he enters himself into the mouth of the serpent, who then closes his jaw, feels, I got him. I'm going to kill Krishna now. So what does Krishna do? He's Yogeshwar, he's a master of mystic power, and he starts to expand his body, because he's bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest at the same time, which we can't even think of. So he gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the serpent expands his body and expands his body, but Krishna's going to win. So Krishna expands his body so much that the serpent suffocates. and the soul whoop, goes out the top of his head and hovers in the air. The mouth of the serpent opens, the cowherd boys go parading out of the mouth of the serpent. Oh, Krishna did it again. And then the soul of Aghasura hovering in the air goes and merges in the body of Krishna, and everybody, the cowherd boys go, wow. Krishna is really good. Let's go have lunch. Stuff like that happens every day in Krishna's pastimes with the cowherd boys. Because they're having so much fun, they wouldn't even stop for lunch. So when Krishna kills a demon, they say, okay, it's time for lunch. So they go sit under a nice tree and they're having lunch. And Lord Brahma saw the whole scene because he went to visit Krishna just to observe Krishna's pastimes, and he saw such an amazing thing. So he started to think, what's the extent of the potency of Krishna? It's amazing. So he then got this unwholesome desire. I'll match my mystic power against Krishna's power and see what he's going to do. Big mistake. Don't do that. But he did that. So as they're sitting down, Brahma took all the calves, because they're not the little boys, they're not herding cows yet, it's still just the calves. Took the calves, put them in a cave, and sealed the cave with a big rock. And then the cowherd boys looked around and said, whoa, the calves are gone. Let's go gather the calf. We're here to protect the calves. Krishna said, don't worry. I'll take care of it. You finish your lunch, I'll go get the calves. So when Krishna's gone, Brahma comes and steals the cowherd boys and put them in the cave. I don't know if it's the same cave or different cave, but he put them in a cave, covered with a big rock. And then he went back to the scene of the crime. Because criminals do that sometimes, to see what Krishna will do. He was wondering, is he going to cry? Is he going to fall at my feet and beg for my mercy so I can return the calf to the cowherd? What's Krishna going to do? That's not what Krishna did. He manifested identical features of all the calves and all the cowherd boys. That's what Brahma saw when he came back. So, wait a minute. I just put the calves and the cowherd boys in the cave, so I went to the cave, and there they were in the cave. But there they were having lunch with Krishna. So we went back to the scene of the crime. And all of a sudden, still while manifesting forms of cowherd boys and calves, Krishna simultaneously manifested 400 forms of Narayan. Each one of them, each one of the calves, and each one of them, there's a lot of calves, and cowherd boys, a lot of cowherd boys, identical features of Narayan. And this long description of surrounded by the Devas and the personified Vedas and all the potencies of Narayan, and he's got a lot of potencies, and each one of them, their names are there and surrounding him and singing his praise, this big cacophony of sound, celebrating the glories of Lord Narayan, and there's so many multiple features, and then poof, they all disappear. The calf, the cows, in the forms of Narayan. Krishna withdrew them and showed his original form. Just smiling. With unblinking eyes, looking directly at Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma fainted. And he fell at the feet of Krishna, came before him with folded palms, and started offering beautiful prayers. That's chapter 14. That was chapter 13. So chapter 14 is beautiful prayers. Something like 38 prayers. And prayer number 8 is, after honoring Krishna's exalted position and the kindness that Krishna has just shown him, he hasn't punished him. He's rewarded him by showing his original form the glories of the potencies that he wanted to see, he saw it, like, yow, or something like that. But more than the opulence of Krishna is the sweetness of Krishna. And he saw that too. So now he's, this verse number 8, he's recognizing, I'm gonna get it. I got some reaction coming to me for this misdeed of challenging Krishna, interrupting his pastimes, stealing the calves and the cowherd boys. I'm going to jail. I'm going to get a big reaction. But what am I going to do about that big reaction? So the verse is saying, I'm not going to try, just as the advice of Brahma to Prithu, I'm not going to try to counteract the reaction. I'm just going to accept. Whatever comes, I'm going to accept. Maharaj Parikshit did the same thing after he made his boo-boo. He's going home back to the palace, saying, I offended the Brahmana. Whatever is due to me from my past offense of this Brahmana, I'm going to say yes. Whatever it is. I'm not going to try to counteract it. Whatever is the intention of the Supreme Lord, I'll accept. So that's what Brahma is saying here. I won't go there trying to neutralize the reaction, but what I will do is just keep my mind fixed in saying yes to Krishna. I'm going to keep my mind fixed on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord without wavering at all from that position, knowing that by so doing, I'll go back to Godhead. He doesn't say go back to Godhead, he says, one will inherit the property of the Father. So who is the father of Brahmas? Lord Vishnu, Parvadakshay Vishnu. There's this law, it's called the law of progenitor, or in English. The son inherits the property of the father. All you have to do is survive your father, and when your father is deceased, at least by law in India, the property of the father becomes the property of the son. So I'm going to stay at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, or Lord Krishna, and by so doing I'll inherit his property. What's his property? The spiritual world. I'll go back to Godhead. Just this one thing. Just this one thing. Just say yes to Krishna. Just that one thing. And what does that mean? It can mean so many different things, how it plays itself out in our lives, but just that one thing. And when reversals come, here's how you deal with it. The advice given, you accept it. Beautiful commentary, lots of commentary because it's a very important verse. And I don't have a lot of time. I want to say some more things. I'll say one of them. Some of you may have attended the Festival of Inspiration in New Vrindavan. Maybe some didn't, but it's an annual event. At least I was regularly going for some time as one of the persons they requested to do the speaking. And every year there was a keynote speaker, the same keynote speaker every year. Peter Burwash was Prabhupada. He's a follower of Prabhupada, but was never initiated, so he's still Peter Burwash. And his first introduction to Krishna consciousness was in Hawaii, where he was not just a tennis pro, but a teacher of tennis pros. That was his job, his occupation in Hawaii. Nice occupation. And during that time, many of the devotees didn't have affluence. So he had some, so he gave at that time it was a substantial donation. I forget what the amount was, $50,000 or something like that, to the temple. The temple that Prabhupada spent a lot of time at. And shortly after he gave his donation to the temple president ran away with his donation. And whatever else he could take, I don't know. So when Peter saw Prabhupada next time Prabhupada visited Hawaii, he disclosed what happened. This president, he took my $50,000 donation. And Prabhupada didn't excuse the behavior or condone the behavior. He said he wanted to instruct Peter. Same principle. The principle was, don't blame the instrument of your karma. Something comes your way. Someone's an instrument of something that's going to come your way. Don't blame the instrument of your own karma. Now, what about devotees? We're practicing devotional service and chanting Hare Krishna. Where's the karma? Still, there may be, not exactly karma, but attachment to something that's, using Bhaktisiddhanta's language, unwholesome desire. So we're getting free from unwholesome desire by some means of Krishna sending our way. And we don't blame the instrument. We look inside and see what's inside there that needs to be purified. That's how Vaishnavas respond. So here's the verse in purport, and I'm talking too much. The Sanskrit is tat te nukampam susamikshimano. It's repeated over and over again in Prabhupada's lectures and purports. Tat te nukampam susamikshimano. Anukampa means compassion, and susamikshimana is hoping. One remains in the position hoping for Krishna's kindness. O my dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Now this is not Prabhupada's purport, this is the first chapter after Prabhupada departed and finished with chapter 13. Srila Sridhar Swami explains in his commentary that just as a legitimate son simply has to remain alive to gain an inheritance from his father, one who simply remains alive, Jiveta is the Sanskrit, alive, one who remains alive in Krishna consciousness, following the regular principles of Bhakti Yoga, automatically becomes eligible to receive the mercy of the personality of God. So the external is there, but the operative, the primary, is the internal. Alive in Krishna consciousness. That's the expectation of Krishna's mercy. I want to be in my relationship with Krishna. Whatever else happens, that doesn't change. That's unchanging. It's unswerving. It's my mission in life. It's who I am. The word susamikshimana indicates that a devotee earnestly awaits the mercy of the Supreme Lord, even while suffering the painful effects of previous sinful activities. There's a lot and there isn't time. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments like this. A child with a loving father will sometimes be treated by the loving father with sweet milk and sometimes with bitter nimba juice, or bitter medicine. Sometimes the father may embrace his son. Sometimes the father may scold his son. But the child, understanding that his father is a loving father, never objects to the bitter nimba juice and say, I don't want that, I just want the sweet milk. I don't want the scolding, I only want your embrace. But the loving father may sometimes have to do both. out of love. So if the father is a loving father, it's not, he loses it with anger and just like slaps his kid around or something. But out of affection, knowing what's good for the son. Which is, I'm preparing for Ramayana, everything keeps relating back to Ramayana. When Ram is to become the king, Dasarath calls him from his palace, where he's with Sita, and he calls for him and says, I know you're righteous. And he doesn't pray. The commentary says the king or the father or the teacher, Prabhupada taught this over and over again, should never pamper, just praise in a reasonable fashion, but not overly praise. So he cautions Ram, don't become proud when you become king. Stay always humble. And you'll be called upon, you're righteous, but you'll be called upon to increase your righteousness when you become king. So sometimes, you're encouraging, but at the same time you're cautioning. And that's good parenting, it's good teaching, it's good when you have a friend. You can, say nice, happy things with your friend. But you can also say, here's some room for improvement. And when you say it because you're a friend, they'll take it. It's not criticism or fault finding. You have affection for them. In the place where I stay, I'm run out of time. The place where I stay is the Institute House, and on the wall there's this nice saying which I like so much I made a copy of it and circulate it from time to time. A friend is one who knows who you are, they accept who you are, they know your strengths and weaknesses, and at the same time they gently encourage you to grow. Not exactly like that, but something close. That's how we should be with one another. And when those circumstances come our way, it's the bitter nimba juice, or the scolding, or admonishing, or correcting, or good advice. It's taken in a loving way. And so, in relation to Krishna, he's loving. And circumstances may come that are difficult. I know about difficult circumstances, or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20. Some of them are really severe. So now, how to handle that? We may not understand the plan of the Lord, but the one thing for sure, Krishna is kind. And the kindness of Krishna is something we can count on. And our relationship with Krishna is something we need to invest in. And say yes to. Not necessarily the circumstance, but say yes to Krishna. And then you can, from that position, you can understand the best way to serve Krishna in the circumstance. Like this Viktor Frankl. You choose how you're going to respond to circumstances that are outside of your control, and do so in the mood of being a servant of Krishna. Really important lesson, because we're in a place of duality and we have contamination, and we're going to get freed from contamination one way or another. Sometimes it's gentle and sometimes it's not so gentle. And when we get shaken up, upside down and shaken, what do? Continue to say yes to Krishna and stay in that relationship, cultivate that relationship. Try to understand, if you can, the intention of Krishna, but at least the intention is strengthen your relationship with him. The ultimate good for the living entity is there. That's the intention of Krishna. He's very kind. Well, we have 3 minutes for questions.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I'm trying to understand the application of accepting Krishna. not necessarily being able to understand Krishna's plan, and just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, don't even try, because even saintly persons, they give up that whole idea of trying to understand Krishna's plan. Similar to the story of the fisherman, the Chinese fisherman, just accept it, either this way or that way.
And a fisherman, he's a farmer.
A farmer,
Okay.
fisherman, a farmer. So
there's Chinese fishermen too.
I have that picture in Chinatown. So
he's from New York. He knows Chinatown.
so, but I always have the thinking that these tribulations that we have to face is Krishna is trying to teach us a lesson, and we have to sort of be able to extrapolate.
Yes.
What is that teaching? What is that telling me?
You can ask the question, you may not get the answer. Your happiness should not depend upon getting the answer. You can, turn the Krishna channel on and say, Krishna, what's the message for me? And you may not get a signal. Asking the question is fine. If you don't ask questions, you're not going to get answers. You can be hitting you over the head with the answer. You won't hear it, or see it, or feel it. Just feel the pain like being hit over the head. So, ask the question is okay, but that's not the main criterion. The main criterion is the box is the Bhishma Dev. You said Bhaktivinoda is Bhishma Dev says. Look at those things. Am I following theistic conduct? Am I doing that under the guidance of a Vaishnava? Am I doing this for the purpose of pleasing Krishna? Look there. That's the advice. Now, it's not a zero to say, I'm just saying it again, but to say, what's Krishna's plan? Because if there's something inside us that's dirty, we're going to have reruns of tribulation again and again and again until we get it, what the thing is, and get rid of it. If not this lifetime, the next lifetime, next lifetime, next lifetime, whatever it is. To get back to Godhead, the heart has to become thoroughly clean. But the means of getting clean is not just carry on with our activity, but it's connect with the intention of pleasing Krishna. So that's the third item. When that light is on, bright, then you'll start to see the other things. That's the bhakti principle that has the power to dissolve the subtle body, which is the repository place of dirty things, other than Krishna things, materialistic things. Who's scheduled to lead the kirtan? Who's on the schedule? Okay. Are you? And the schedule goes until when? 9. So I'm going to take a little of your time. Up front here.
Hi Krishna Maharaj. I was wondering, what if the reversal is impacting our opportunity to take shelter in a particular service?
Say it again, slower.
What if the reversal?
What's the reversal?
What if the reversal?
What if the reversal
is impacting our opportunity to take shelter in a particular service?
Well, that's hallucination. The opportunity to take shelter isn't created or obstructed by circumstance. Say it positively. Your opportunity to take shelter of Krishna has no material condition to it. You can take shelter of Krishna in any circumstance of life. Now, why a particular circumstance has come instead of the one that I wanted is another question. But we're not the physician. Krishna is the physician. And he's creating a circumstance in our life so that impurities within our heart can be removed. And we see the circumstance as an opportunity for serving Krishna and taking shelter of him. You know, the situation may be pretty unique. You know, not like, you know, one we would really had in mind when we started walking down the path of our life this today. But there it is. Now what's the proper way to address being in Krishna's shelter in this circumstance? So we need guidance, and we need buddhi, we need spiritual intelligence from Krishna. We need bhakti to get that buddhi. And then buddhi can drive to bhakti, along with this question. Someone else? Yes? Just go ahead. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. My question is, sometimes the situations are so difficult.
Sometimes what?
The situations are really difficult.
Really?
You have
Oh, it looks that way.
should we not even try to analyze the situation?
You can analyze the situation. That doesn't. You don't turn your intelligence, your power of discrimination in the off position. That's not the efficacy. Where does your primary attention go to your relationship with Krishna? When your primary attention goes there, there's much more light. You'll be able to discriminate much better. You'll have more illumination power, more Krishna intelligence power. If you're fixed and absorbed in your relationship with Krishna, then otherwise it's animal life. It's fear and panic and darkness and defense and reaction. It's not the best.
So we should still endeavor to make the situation if we can, keeping us fixed.
Okay, you win. You're negating the whole class. You can do that. I mean, a lot depends upon your faith, what you're going to do anyways, aside from what you hear. The position of faith is going to determine what you do. The recommendation is turn your, in the fullest way that you can, turn your faith to Krishna and take direction from Krishna, how to be in service to him. In that mood, you can do the analysis. The problem is, just hearing your question, the forgetfulness of Krishna is predominating and the analysis is predominating instead. So, move that as much as you can to the side of just take shelter of Krishna, pause, I'm Krishna's servant, let it go deep inside. Now, how to best serve Krishna? How to best serve Krishna? Analyze from that vantage point, from the seat of consciousness, the soul, from the heart level, how to best please Krishna in this circumstance.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. Maharaj, how we can draw the line between the surrendering onto the Krishna versus our own independence or...
Versus which?
Using our own independence or intelligence.
Using our own what?
Independence.
Independence.
Or intelligence.
Or intelligence. Well, you subordinate the second one to the first one. You do the same question, asked in a different way. You subordinate your intelligence to the mood of being in Krishna's service. Now the tendency is to say, yeah, I'm in the mood of service, now I'm going to analyze. And we forgot Krishna, or it's like diminished significantly at least. So we're going to do that other one anyway, invest over here. The other one's going to follow. It's not going to, we're conditioned souls. We're going to keep doing the bungee cord program. We're going to keep going back and back and back to our old ways. So focus over here as much as you can and derive strength from that position in the mood of simply being the humble servant of Krishna and Krishna's intimate devotees. Strive like that, and you'll do much better in the analysis department, using your intelligence department. Much better. See? Confirmed. Yes, over here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I don't mean to piggyback, I'm very sorry, but in the same aspect of what they're talking about, I feel like, okay, so let's say someone offends you, they step on your back.
Yeah.
And then your heart, you start to, you soften, okay, you chant, right, and your heart becomes soft. And then they step on your back, and they do it again. You know what I mean? Like a constant thing. So don't you think, do you think that it's appropriate to I feel like that's a pacifist way to just get stepped on.
You don't have to be a pacifist. You have to be a devotee.
So Krishna wants us to chant so we can soften our heart, just to make it hard again when people hurt us?
No.
I don't understand that part.
Okay, we'll go over it again. Let's talk about Arjuna. Arjuna. So, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explains, to incite him to fight. And you can't fight unless you're angry. He incites him to anger. He's not speaking pacifism. He's speaking duty for the pleasure of Krishna. What does Krishna want? So now, someone step on your back and a step again. I'm very familiar with that territory, subjectively, not but vicariously from others, but also personally. I know what it's like. Now, the message is don't be a pacifist. That's not the appeal. But if you're going to do something, let it be in the mood of what's favorable for pleasing Krishna. And here's this devotee that they may not even know what they're doing, or that person in the workplace or wherever it is, wherever. They may not, and likely it's coming from a place of deep hurt and pain. It's why they're doing such things that are painful to others. It's coming from a place of pain. From them, there's a saying that says, if you at all knew that the turmoil and trouble and difficulty in someone's life, you can easily forgive them. Now, forgive doesn't mean pacifism. You may do something besides forgive. But when you do that something, let it be in the mood of how to be of service to this person in a way that's pleasing to Krishna. Now, it's not, you may not have an answer to that. But ask the question, because there's protection for you from your lower nature. Oh yeah, I'm going to show them, or whatever it is. I'm not a weakling, I'm not going to get stepped on. Otherwise, you're no better than they are. That's Prabhupada, to Bhakti Tirtha Swami. You know Bhakti Tirtha Swami?
Yes.
Familiar? Long story short, he joined the Hare Krishna movement because of his great affection for Prabhupada and his teachings and his movement. He met with Prabhupada, this is a long story, but made short. He disclosed to Prabhupada, I have found by being part of the Hare Krishna movement, there's racial discrimination in your organization. And it was like a big moment for him because of who he was. Valedictorian of Princeton University graduating class, and et cetera, brilliant person, et cetera. And here he is joining the Hare Krishna movement, being treated with racial discrimination. Prabhupada's answer melted his heart. He said, he didn't say that's bad. He didn't say it's okay. He said that you are disturbed by this means you're no better than they are. whoa. So being disturbed by this means you're no better than they are. Because the animal propensity is defend. Now, you may do something to check the behavior, but not let it come from the animal place. Let it come from the Vaishnava place. Let me be of service to this backstepping person. What's good for them? I'm a tiny person. What can I do that's good for anybody? But let me have that mood of being in service to the soul. Because the soul is troubled. That's why they're stepping on backs. And if I just happen to be the back that's nearby, the next person, the next person, the next person is the other victim. And I don't want to see other people be victimized any more than I want to see myself be victimized. What can I do? And retaliating isn't going to take care of the hurt and pain and the contamination of the heart that's causing that. What can I do to be of service to this spirit soul that's part of Krishna in a way that's pleasing to Krishna? I mean, it's not an easy step to take. But if you ask, seek and ye shall find, you know that one? So you'll find an answer to that question. You cultivate it and it starts to grow. And, I'll clue you in. The opportunity to grow in that area continues in life. As you learn that lesson, then you get another one. And you deal with that one, then you get another one. And, we're being prepared to go back to Godhead in a world that's the opposite. It's upside down in reflection, perverted reflection. But we're to practice being loving devotees of Krishna in a world that's dark. How to do that? So it starts with don't react, be forgiving, take appropriate action. You may not know what it is, so wait till you know what it is. But when you're in service to that person in a way that's pleasing to Krishna, let that be what's carried in your heart, and Krishna will fill it. You leave that space and Krishna will fill the space. A little, and then a little more, and then your life becomes like that.
Thank you.
That's growing in Krishna consciousness. It's not easy. It's the reacting modality. That's easy. 1, 2, 3. You don't even have to think about it. So now we're to grow out of that reactive mentality in the Krishna conscious reality of life. Nice. It's a challenge. Challenges like that are good. It's good. It helps us grow in Krishna consciousness. Last question. No? Okay. One. Whoa. This young girl here. It's 8:15. We're cutting our kirtan time, everybody. So.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you stated that we should accept ordeals in our life and should rather focus on Krishna. So when it comes to, say, someone's having spiritual difficulties, such as, they're completely separated from temple or devotees or surrounded by neighbors who are, averse to devotional service. Is it wrong to be averse to that situation, and can one wish for a better spiritually conducive environment?
Depends. There's lots of variables, and it depends. It depends on you, it depends on the circumstance, it depends on, the answer to the question, what does Krishna want of me? We heard what Bhaktisiddhanta said, just stay in the circumstance. That's one approach. But it may not, I'm thinking of a particular situation where it's just terribly damaging to a particular individual's Krishna consciousness to stay in that position. It's terribly damaging. That the atmosphere is one where offenses are being made left and right and sideways and all over the place. So that person should not stay in that circumstance. They're being abused. They shouldn't stay in the abused situation. But if there's something, you look inside and see, is there something in the situation that I have that you or any one of us, that I have, that I can be a better instrument in Krishna service and as a result have the nourishing resources available that Krishna is ready to give. I just have to be ready to receive. You follow?
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to end and have kirtan. Now, before you make your announcement, don't get up and walk around yet. I'm going to, coming to Gita Nagari, I have a lot of Mahaprasada in a box.